We are previewing week 1 in college football here at Inside the Lines at SBR Forum Videos. I'm Peter Loshak, and we're going to discuss UNC at South Carolina right now with one of my absolute favorite all-time returning guests, industry veteran from the late 80s originally, Joe Duffy from OffshoreInsiders.com. Joe, thanks for being back with us this year doing football previews.
Thank you, Peter. I am fired up for this football season.
Me too, absolutely. Although I'll tell you, this first game that we're covering, UNC at South Carolina, has me a little bit nervous. I think it's going to be a pass for me. I'm very interested to hear what you have to say about it. Before we get into it, give us a 15-second plug for your website, OffshoreInsiders.com.
Yes, OffshoreInsiders.com. I honestly believe this is going to be my best football season ever. I'll be happy if somebody wants to email me through the contact form to give specific reasons why, but in short, I've really tightened up my metrics this year and perfected it. So just email me through OffshoreInsiders.com. I'll send you more details, specific reasons why this will be our best ever.
Oh, how can it be your best season ever? You've had like 35 seasons so far. It's going to be your absolute best season ever, you think?
Well, that's true. I've been professionally handicapping since 1988. This will be 26 years. But As far as handicapping and betting, I go back much further. But yeah, without question, one of the best ever. Some of the new metrics we've done paid off big time in college basketball season. In short, I'm really emphasizing more old-fashioned techniques and de-emphasizing some of the technology that arguably I fell a little bit too in love with that kind of talked me off of some games. That's kind of the synopsis of it.
All right, sounds good. I definitely trust you, and obviously you impress everyone with your thorough analysis of games. This is a tough one, though. UNC at South Carolina. South Carolina minus 11.5. The total is 56. Now, the Tar Heels, of course, are playing in Larry Fedora's fast-paced offense. They played it pretty well last year, but they did lose a bunch of talent to the NFL, so it's not clear how well they're going to be able to pick it up right here in Game 1 against, a formidable defense, South Carolina. Now, South Carolina, of course, returns Clowney, and he is, the biggest defensive star of the year, the biggest name that everyone's discussing. They did lose a bunch of sort of lesser-known defensive players that they're going to have to replace this year, but then again, they are South Carolina, so maybe they'll be able to step right in and be as good or better. This line and this game makes me a little bit nervous. I feel like I'm going to pass. One thing I'm thinking, though, because of the pace that UNC plays at and that they're, maybe South Carolina might be a little bit overrated on defense this year, at least to start, I'm thinking maybe the over 56. South Carolina was 8-4 over-under last year, despite their big defense, and UNC 7-4 over-under last year as well. So I'm thinking maybe over 56. I think it's a pass for me. What do you like here?
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you talked about the pace because, as I've always said, that the key to handicapping totals isn't so much the competence of the offensive teams and the defensive units, it is the pace. But I also think that's going to be quite key to the side here. The million-dollar question every team that's facing South Carolina is how to slow down Jadeveon Clowney. But in reality, maybe the key to slowing down Clowney is to speed him up. I think just about any coach or player I've ever heard comment on this, and the old eye test. If you go to a game or if you watch the game films, when an offense gets the ball past the line of scrimmage, the jobs of the offensive linemen, they're basically done. They can stand around, kind of scratch themselves, but the entire defense is in pursuit of the ball. And that's why the very wide-held belief is, and it's really factually based, that a fast-paced offense generally will wear the defense down more than the offense, especially at the point of attack. And maybe that's one way to slow down Jadeveon Clowney just a little bit. Plus, you're right, North Carolina did have to replace a couple players, but Bryn Renner, their quarterback, is back. And more importantly, it's a new system. They're more comfortable in the system. And I think the fact that North Carolina is comfortable on that side of the ball, not to mention the other side of the ball, maybe we'll have a chance to talk about that. But the fact that North Carolina is more comfortable in that and they've got an experienced quarterback coming back, I think they're going to give South Carolina a few fits in this one.
That's my sense, my very tiny slight sense is that maybe North Carolina getting 11.5 is a little bit too much, but it just makes me a little bit nervous. What if you think there's a huge talent discrepancy here, though, in favor of South Carolina?
Yeah, South Carolina, obviously, whenever in doubt, you go with the SEC team. Right. But we talked about, the schemes on the offensive side of the ball. I believe one of the most improved units on either side of the ball in the country will be North Carolina's defense. They kind of mirror Arizona, and I've really gone over some cliff notes of just about every offense and defense in the country, and there's a lot of similarities between North Carolina's defense and Arizona's defense. Both of them learned complicated defenses last year. North Carolina plays this bizarre 4-2-5 defense, extremely complicated. They had a bunch of injuries. The players struggled to learn it, but both their defensive coordinator, Vic Koenig, and, of course, Fedora, their head coach, they've both made comments to the effect that there is no comparison this year to last year as far as the personnel, their knowledge of the defensive schemes. Plus, you would hope that based on the percentages, North Carolina's defense will be a little healthier than it was last year. So look for North Carolina. And again, I would almost say the exact same thing about Arizona's defense. And looking around the country, both of these defenses are going to be improved for pretty similar reasons.
All right, so it sounds like you're hinting at, maybe a slight lean towards North Carolina getting 11.5 points. Can I put those words in your mouth?
You can. And also, Koenig's defenses, he's had a few stops before. Clemson, Kansas State, Illinois. His defenses have drastically improved from year 2, from year 1, every place he's been. So I look for this to be at 4 out of 4.
Well, you know what they say, though? ACC against the SEC in football, always take the SEC, even minus 11.5. That doesn't, you don't think that applies here?
That's not necessarily always the case. They've played right here in Atlanta. I'm based out of Atlanta. They play in the Chick-fil-A Bowl every year, and the ACC's had some decent luck in there. That is a lot of points, to be honest with you. And I think this is going to remind me of a couple years ago when South Carolina played Troy to open it up. North Carolina, I think they played that same fast-paced defense that Troy did, and I think they're going to sneak in the back door at the very least.
All right, you're making a very compelling argument. High expectations for South Carolina this year. Maybe they get a rude awakening, rude introduction to the 2013 season, and lose ATS against UNC. Thanks, Joe.